All right, let's talk about the Soviet secret. Right, we all know that the Soviet Union was this incredible powerhouse of all this sports science research. And there's all these amazing things that came out of it. Whether it's this periodization models and plyometrics, they did all this research, all this amazing stuff. And I know everyone wants to just be like, oh, it's just steroids. But, and I'm getting that out of the way right from the beginning. Like, it's not just, oh, it's just steroids. They were on juice and we weren't. So, like, maybe do a little bit of research. Dr. Z invented Dianabol just for the Americans. No one wants to talk about that. So, yeah. So the Americans were doping and the Soviets were doping, and yet the Soviets still beat the Americans. And even today, let's not pretend like, oh, Americans are all drug free. We play by the rules because you know that we don't, because people still test positive and fail their drug tests. So, like making the claim, oh, we're drug free. Yes. And Lance Armstrong passed a lot of those drug tests. And I have nothing against Lance, by the way. This is not a critique or a criticism of Lance. As I've said in other videos and other contexts, if someone's paying you millions of dollars to take something, you'll probably take it. Like a lot of you out there would take, I don't know, name some awful drug, meth. Like if I offered you $10 million to take some meth, you'd probably take some meth. When you wave enough money at people, they'll do it. So, in any case, what is the secret, right? That's the important part. So the first thing I want to get out of the way is what isn't the secret. What isn't the secret is this idea that they just have some kind of superior doping program. What is the secret? We're going to get right into that right now. It's data. That's what it is. And I don't care what we're talking about. We're talking about weightlifting or we're talking about the hammer throw. We're talking about the shot put. We're talking about anything. Like data. High jump. Data. Everything was all about numbers. And they had ratios and calculations and all this stuff like that. The Soviet secret was data. So, you look at some of these books and you start reading through them and it's like, they have all these ratios in there where they figured out how much your squat matters relative to how far you can throw the hammer. And of course, if you look at the chart, throwing hammers of different weights, right? So there's, 5 kilos, 10 kilos, etc. They have these different weights. Well, those all transfer better to the hammer throw than anything you can do in the gym. But then still, the highest transfer of training from different movements was the squat and the snatch. So, spend your time doing squats and snatches if you want to get stronger. Maybe don't spend your time bench pressing because it looks like, from the data at least, bench press didn't really improve the hammer throw by much. So instead of sitting there chasing this 500-pound bench, go chase a 500-pound squat. And the same thing's true of weightlifting. If you read through some of these weightlifting books, Training of the Weightlifter, and I would love to say these people's names. I think it's like Laputin, but like forgive me because I'm sure I didn't pronounce it properly, or Medvedev. You start looking through these things and it's like, well, the power clean. The power clean had the greatest transfer of training. It improved the clean and the snatch more than anything else. Then you look at things and it's like the power snatch. Doesn't surprise me either. Like, why wouldn't power cleans and power snatches improve things? But then you start looking down the list and it's like, so overhead squats, yeah, if you push your overhead squat up, you'll lift more. Front squats, and you start looking at some of these things and it's like, shoulder press didn't really improve the jerk by much, though. In fact, it's probably not worth you spending a lot of time working on a shoulder press or a bench press. Even your back squat. The back squat really didn't transfer nearly as much as the front squat into the overhead squat. So you start looking at these things and you start realizing it's the data. The secret was the data. Because what they did is they figured out what things actually matter and then they spent their time on those things. So, here we are in the US and it's like, just get stronger. Like, we got to deadlift and we got to do this and we got to do that. And, okay. You look at the Bulgarian program, and it's like, oh, all we're going to do is front squat, clean and jerk, and snatch. And it's like, okay. At some point, you're going to fatigue on those things, and actually, exercise variation is necessary to continue pushing adaptation. So, what do you do when your front squat stalls? Maybe do some overhead squats. I know this is terrible of me to say though, because it sounds like I'm promoting, like West Side Conjugate system for weightlifting, because I'm recommending that people use assistance lifts to improve their main lift. Like, you should do front squats, and then whenever front squats stall out, switch to overhead squats. And it's like, you should do jerks, and then whenever your jerk starts to stall, switch to push presses for a while. Blasphemy, I know. But this is not my opinion, actually. Like, this is not Chad's opinion. This is Chad telling you exactly what's in these books, and chances are you didn't bother reading these books, because no one does. But I do, because I have no friends and I am totally unpopular. So I sit around and I actually read Super Training. How many people have actually read Super Training? I got news for you. It's really, really boring. It's like reading a fucking encyclopedia or a dictionary. Like, this is not a good read. This isn't like reading, like, this is not high level entertainment. It is really unbelievably boring, and it's slow, and it's not even organized particularly well. Super Training is not a fun read. It's one that I had to force myself through because I was like, there has to be something important in here. And so I dug out my notebook and I read Super Training. Okay? The same thing's true of, like, if you're reading Verkhoshansky and stuff like that. Like, a lot of these books are not fun books to read. The point that I'm getting at, though, is that if you actually sit down and read these books, you'll find out that what I'm saying here is exactly what's in those books. Like, I didn't come to this conclusion on my own. I looked at these books and I was like, huh. So, like, they figured out what things matter and then just spent all their time doing the things that matter. Sounds like common sense. But you have to understand, the key to this is that they collected the data in the first place. Because I could sit here and tell you, hey, just do the things that matter. But if you don't know what things matter, that's where you need to start. So the very first thing you have to do is collect data. And so the Soviet secret was that they collected a ton of data. They figured out what things improve your high jump, what things improve your shot put, what things actually improve your hammer throw. And then they used that data to figure out where to put their energy. So instead of spending your time doing kettlebell swings and deadlifts, the power clean. Oh, and over here, in this sport, the hang power clean in particular mattered more than the power clean from the floor. I guess we should spend our time doing hang power cleans then instead of doing cleans. And everyone wants to say, like, oh, squat, 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 squat. And it's like, well, sure. But the front squat mattered way more than the back squat, and the overhead squat even mattered more than the back squat. Yet we spend our time pushing our back squat up because... Right. So, once you take a look at this, you start to realize that they basically just reverse engineered things. They basically just looked at it and said, hey, these are things that made people throw further, and so that's what we're going to spend our time doing. And that's the Soviet secret. I guarantee it isn't drugs or something. I mean, every country was using drugs. Even today, every country is using drugs. If you're going to sit here and try to tell me, like, oh, well, the Russians have a doping program, but the Chinese don't, and the Americans don't. I don't know. You probably still believe in the Tooth Fairy. So, and even outside of that, let's look at powerlifting, for example. Okay, there are federations that don't test, and you can still see, like, the doping is everywhere. It's part of sports, unfortunately. And actually, that's something I think is really tragic, but that's for a different topic and on a different time.